Sometimes when we become afraid, our intentions get dark. We still have this animal nature where, we're at the crossroads. We're half animal and half spirit. So when we get afraid, the animal nature rises up, and sometimes our intentions are not very good. But often we beat ourselves up and feel guilty over mistakes. And if your intention was good, you can forgive yourself. Oh, by the way, in relationship, if you can communicate this, that's great. If you're in a relationship with somebody who is interested in what your intention was, then they too are more likely to forgive and forget. Oh, well, that's okay. I understand you.
Beyond politics and above organized religion, a moral authority exists known globally as the ageless wisdom. It is the study of consciousness, the mystery of awareness, which cannot be measured yet will not be denied. This podcast from Michael Benner's Ageless Wisdom Salon features lessons in metaphysics, mysticism, and esoteric philosophy. Those who attend live on Zoom may also participate in group meditation and roundtable discussions. Register for our newsletter at michaelbenner.com. Welcome to the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School with
Michael Benner.
Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Let's talk about this. Let's start again with the idea of samsara. Samsara is often thought in the Buddhist tradition, often considered to be merely our existence as material beings in this physical material world, that's samsara. Samsara, in fact, is a wheel. There is a Buddhist icon you may be familiar with. It looks sort of like a wheel on a sailing ship. And it has 8 spokes. And those 8 spokes on that wheel, if you've ever seen it, represent the Eightfold Noble Path. But it's a wheel. And so too samsara is a wheel, and life is a wheel, and energy cycles. It's a wheel. It goes around and around. Yeah, I mentioned the weather. The high pressure area goes around in one direction. I forget which is which, clockwise or counterclockwise. The low pressure area goes in the other direction. So in the northern hemisphere, water goes down the drain in one direction, around and around. South of the equator, it goes down the drain in the other direction, so nicely balanced. But always around and around. If you've ever watched water come off a paddle when you were rowing a boat or a canoe, as the water comes off the paddle, it creates these little whirlpools. It's just everywhere. And so too life. It's just ridiculous that the only exception would be life itself, and you only get one shot, one crack at it. Where this came from, I'm not sure. Ancient Judaism doesn't have a whole lot to say about heaven and hell. You might be surprised at how little, if you have Jewish friends, especially older Jewish friends, you might ask them about that. It's my impression that the majority of Jews that I know don't really have a belief system one way or another. But Christ talked about hell and the nature of evil. Buddhists have a hell. There is such a thing as hell in Buddhism. In fact, Buddhists have 3 hells. But they're not locations. They're not destinations. They're not places. Like everything else, they're conditions that we bring about ourselves through our karma, our intentions, our values and ethics, our approach to being virtuous or not. And karma is simply cause and effect. It's just there are consequences to our intentions, to our thoughts, and to our behavior. And by the way, intention is really where it begins. Karma begins with intention. If you ever wonder, oh my Lord, did I create for myself bad karma that I'm going to reap as a result of this horrible mistake I made? Ask yourself, what was your intention? It's a lot easier to forgive yourself if you understand your intention was good. If your intention was not good, well, then you know that, and there's plenty of room to improve your behavior. Sometimes when we become afraid, our intentions get dark. We still have this animal nature where, we're at the crossroads. We're half animal and half spirit. So when we get afraid, the animal nature rises up, and sometimes our intentions are not very good. But often we beat ourselves up and feel guilty over mistakes. And if your intention was good, you can forgive yourself. Oh, by the way, in relationship, if you can communicate this, that's great. If you're in a relationship with somebody who is interested in what your intention was, then they too are more likely to forgive and forget. Oh, well, that's okay. I understand you. And somebody might say something to you that's very hurtful or very insulting, but it wasn't their intention to hurt you or insult you. It just came out that way. And sometimes they're too proud to admit that they screwed up. I think that's important. The karma doesn't accrue simply based on your behavior or on your thoughts, but on the intention behind the thought, behind the behavior. So hell, in the Buddhist understanding, is not a location or a destination. It's a condition that you create around you. And so at any point on this wheel, samsara, of incarnation and the in-between Bardo states, whatever you're experiencing, you have to take full and complete responsibility. Well, you don't have to, but it's in it's in our interest to take complete responsibility for that and say, somehow I created this situation. Often, I don't know how. I don't know why this is happening to me. This is pretty horrible, and I would do about anything to avoid it. I don't see any benefit in this. But nevertheless, take responsibility for it. Own it. Say, somehow, this is in my interest. Somehow I need to go through this. Not as punishment. Please keep in mind, karma is never, ever a punishment. This is exclusive to Abrahamic religions, that God punishes you like a bad parent. There's no punishment in the universe, only opportunity. And that's why Bardo means not only transition, but opportunity. Every moment in your life is an opportunity for enlightenment. Every moment in your life, in form and above and free of form, contains opportunity for us to realize the truth of who we are. The one thing. The one heart, the one mind. By any name. God, Yahweh, Jesus, Krishna, Allah, Brahman, the Great Spirit, the Prime Mover, the Absolute, the Godhead, whatever. The one thing, the totality of it all. Religious people, in all religions, they tend to believe in one God, but that God is separate from its creation, lives outside its creation, some sort of being on a cloud. We're talking about a non-dual reality. a non-dual monism, not monotheism. Monism is a non-dual reality. There's only one of us here. That's all enlightenment is realizing that, understanding that, being mindful of that throughout your day. So, of course, you're going to be kinder to someone and more generous and more loving and more compassionate if you know that they are you in a different form, like different apples on one tree. I was talking about traffic a week or two ago. I thought this was a pretty good example. I've been thinking about it ever since. The idea that, in gridlock, people are honking their horns and cursing at each other, when in fact we're all in the same. we're all stuck in the same thing. We're not. There's nobody out there that intended to create gridlock to slow your day and frustrate you. They're victims too. Why is it so hard for us to recognize ourselves in each other and the divine and the sacred in all things, great and small? So samsara is a great wheel, and every moment of existence in any state or stage contains the opportunity for enlightenment. Having said that, the Bardo Thodol, or the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is very specific about one great opportunity soon after death to escape this karmic wheel of birth and rebirth, of sickness and aging and death and rebirth, and the suffering that is involved in that. Again, the adversity, the fires of adversity purifying us, creating opportunity for us to be better and better, to grow, to evolve. That's what this universe is. It's evolving, it's growing, it's expanding. Why? Why would the one create the multiplicity other than to know itself? That's who and what each of us is. Kind of a liaison, a missionary, a representative going out into the world in a unique form, experiencing what no one has ever experienced, living a life that no one else ever has or ever will live. Unique in every way. This universe won't even replicate snowflakes. It wants every snowflake to have a unique experience. Every grain of sand has to be unique. Everything. That's pretty remarkable. Not just different, not just diverse, but absolutely unique. To know its many qualities. I heard somebody say once, it's simple. It's just that God doesn't want to have dinner alone. He wants some company, somebody to talk to. And the first noble truth of Buddhism, life is suffering. Let's keep in mind that a lot of that suffering is horrible. Most of it is mere discontent. It's a bit overstated to call it suffering. And a lot of it is exquisitely beautiful. None of us are in a hurry to die, even if we're in pain every day. There's a lot of beauty here, extraordinary beauty. But again, life is what you make it, right? So whether you're experiencing heaven right now or hell right now, or like most of us, a leg in both worlds right now, little heaven, little hell. There's always an opportunity here to be realized. And that's why we do this work. So, given that on this wheel, this samsara, this sometimes it's called the wheel of Dharma too, there's an incarnation, and then Bardo's transition is basically broken into four parts. There's the Bardo of living, There's the Bardo of the dying process, which again could be minutes, hours, days, weeks, years. There's the Bardo of the moment of death, which I'd like to speak to next. And then the Bardo, what's commonly called the Bardo state, which is the human existence between lives. So let's talk about this third Bardo state, the opportunity that presents itself. And this is major opportunity that presents itself after death. First of all, let me remind you that when I say this is not a belief system, this is realized information. This book was written in the 13th century and deliberately hidden for 700 years because the Buddhist monks that wrote it felt nobody would understand it. It's like Christ saying, we teach in parables because if I just said it straight out, you'd never get it. You wouldn't understand me. So I use allegories like you reap what you sow. And then he goes on about planting seeds, and some grow and some fall on rocky ground, and some don't get enough water, but others do. And all of his teaching is allegory and metaphor and should be understood that way. I think the problem that fundamentalists have is they take everything literally, then it becomes filled with contradiction. Teachers usually realize this, that a teaching aid or a model is limited. It's only good to a certain point. And if you get too critical about the model, you say, well, it's only an aid. It's only a teaching aid. It's only a metaphor. It only works to a certain point. Consider a merry-go-round, the old merry-go-round. I don't think any of us are old enough to remember, I'm certainly not, a merry-go-round with a real brass ring. But you know the story, that you would reach for the phrase, reaching for the brass ring. So I guess these old merry-go-rounds, you go around and around, and you'd have an opportunity to grab that brass ring. And if you're able to do that, I think that they probably stopped the practice because people were falling off the merry-go-round. If you grabbed the brass ring, then you got some sort of prize or something at the fair or the festival. That's sort of the way it is when we die. Again, this is not a belief system. This is realized by these monks who devoted themselves to remembering, to recollect. Just as some people are able to recall past lives, these guys were able to recall the in-between, the Bardo state in between incarnations. And then this information is accumulated by numerous sources, and that's where it comes from. But again, I don't need you to believe or make a matter of faith any of this material. This is an appeal to your logic and to your reasoning, and does this make sense, and apply it in your life, like karma, reincarnation, impermanence, acceptance, all the basic principles of Eastern philosophy, and Buddhism in particular, which is not a religion. I know people often practice it as if it were, but it's a philosophy. Or as I said before, maybe best thought of as ancient psychotherapy. So there is a review that you've probably heard of, or people say as they died, if they had an NDE and a near-death experience, and they may say, yeah, it was amazing. My whole life flashed before my eyes. In monotheism, there is a notion that we're judged by God, or that Jesus or Gabriel or I don't know, some panel, like the Albert Brooks movie Defending Your Life, some sort of panel of judges reviews our life, judges us, and then sends us on to an eternal existence either in heaven or hell. Well, This wisdom says, no, nobody judges you but you. But remember, you're a realized being now. You're a spirit. You have much greater awareness. Think of yourself as being much more intelligent or better informed. And in this life review, and remember, time doesn't exist outside of space, so how long this takes, there's no way to relate to that because there is no time. Just like in your dreams, there's no time in your dreams. Nobody ever in a dream wondered what time it was. I don't know if that's ever occurred to you, but there's no time in dreams. You will experience your life, the life that you've just exited. You will experience the feelings and the insight and the understanding of your impact on other people, as well as your own experiences, good, bad, and otherwise. There was a movie years ago called Powder. In this film, Powder is sort of this alien being. He's like Michael Valentine Smith in Stranger in a Strange Land. Just super, super empathetic, and he has the ability to transfer that empathy to others. And so there's a scene where he encounters some deer hunters who've just shot a deer. And of course, as I remember it, he falls to his knees watching the deer suffering. He experiences that suffering, but he also transfers that ability to the hunter, who now experiences in his body the suffering of the deer that he has caused. And of course, that's the last time he ever hunted. Empathy is what I'm talking about. And so there is a life review where we experience all the joy and the happiness that we've brought about, that we've brought to others in the world. All the kindness, all the generosity you re-experience. But also the hurt and the heartache that you've caused, whether you intended to or not. It's after going through this that there is a lightning flash, that there is an appearance of what you've probably heard about as the white light. And according to the Bardo, the book, the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this light is so bright, so brilliant, that it could frighten you if you did not recognize it, if you did not anticipate it, if you were not looking for it. And if you turn away from the light and go find some shade or a safe place to huddle and avoid it because it's just so fearful, you continue around the wheel and have all manner of experiences. And I won't dwell on this, but the Tibetans have some very colorful artwork about various demons and evil spirits, as well as angelic spirits that you will encounter along the way. And all manner of colored lights that could tempt you to go here or there. In which case, you squirt right back into incarnation. You come right back into the physical world, whether as a human or an animal or conceivably a plant. I leave that to you. There are many Buddhists that believe it's basically a human thing, that once you're a human, that this reincarnation, it's also called transmigration, is limited to continuing to incarnate as a human being. But other Buddhists are just as clear that you could come back as a golden retriever, or your kitty cat, or a snail, or a lion, or an armadillo, or whatever. Or conceivably even a plant, or a tree, flower. How much of that is your choice? And how much of that is beyond your influence is, again, a matter of the karma that you've generated, the consequences of your values, of your ethics, of how virtuous you've been, of your identity as self. If you think of yourself as a material being, this body, separate from all others in a world of separated form, then you're much likely to miss the light and just squirt right back into incarnation hundreds of times over and over and over. And could you reincarnate to another planet or another universe even? Scientists talk about multiple universes. I don't know. Nobody knows. Tibetan Book of the Dead doesn't speak to this. It just says that of all the opportunity all the way around this wheel, this samsara, the opportunity that you have right now, today, the opportunity you have during the dying process, and the opportunity you have during that life review and that flash of white light, and then after that, if you miss it, all the way around the wheel, encountering all these experiences, including, like I said, the Buddhist idea of hell. One of the three hells in Buddhism is called the hungry ghost, which I always found intriguing because it feels to me very much like existence on Earth. The hungry ghost is a lifetime where your desires are never fulfilled. You're always hungry. There's always an appetite or a thirst. There's always a longing, not merely divine homesickness or the vague longing to resolve your life and be completely happy forever after, but I mean the real torment of no matter what I do, it's always something. Wasn't it Emily Latilda in the old Saturday Night Live? It's always something. People like that. They're just fatalistic, and you can see with their negativity and their pessimism, them creating evidence that they're absolutely right. That's the way you reap what you sow. Again, it's exactly the way the process works. The universe just says yes. If that's your expectation, okay, we'll grow that. You want to plant flowers, we'll grow flowers. Fruits and vegetables, fine. You want to plant briars and brambles and weeds and thorny things and poison ivy, fine, we'll grow that too, whatever. How the mind works and the heart. So it's a matter of recognition, of expectation, of preparing now for this opportunity. Knowing that every moment of your day is an opportunity. And so we meditate, we study, we come to classes like this, we read books, we watch YouTube videos, we go to Netflix, whatever. We ponder, we contemplate, we reflect. Dying, too. Part of grieving and knowing you're going to die, whether it's a matter of moments or years. Lots of opportunity there. And then in between, in what's often called the Bardo state, but again, it's the whole wheel. The multiple opportunities, but look for the white light. That's the ultimate opportunity. If you go to the light, even though it may be super bright and a little bit scary, if you're expecting that, If you're contemplating that now while you're alive, if you contemplate and prepare for that during the dying process, if in the moment of death you maintain conscious awareness, do not expect to go to sleep when you die. Expect to go to a dreamlike place, a place of lucid dreaming, where you maintain and retain conscious awareness through the dying process. It smooths your transition. And there will be guides, by the way. Very friendly guides and helpers. I know this gets fanciful and feels like fairy tales and such. But if you look around, you recognize you have guides right now. What is your conscience that tells you right from wrong? What is your intuition that reveals thoughts that arrive full-blown, just burst into your awareness as if already figured out? Boing, where did that come from? Who handed that to you? We're surrounded by guides. Just a function of your belief system. A Christian would expect to encounter Jesus. When they die, it's likely they will. You know, I'm not that familiar with Islam, but perhaps they expect to encounter Muhammad or Islamic angels or whatever, then they will. If you're a shaman, you may encounter a spirit animal. A Tibetan is going to encounter one of their deities. Hindu, Krishna, what difference does it make? They're just forms, they're just costumes, they're just characters, whether here or there. It's the ocean we seek. Now, you may not want to escape the karmic wheel of rebirth. There is something called the vow of the Bodhisattva. And the vow of the Bodhisattva is a desire, a commitment, really. Desire would not be the best word. Aspiration, maybe. Or a commitment to return, even if you don't need to, even if you were realized or enlightened and recognize the light and able to escape the karmic wheel of rebirth. You choose to come back to teach and to help, like a Christ, or not even limited to the prophets, just the people that have impacted us, the Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings of the world, the women and the men who, most of whom we don't know about and will never meet, who are just so kind, loving, compassionate, and virtuous. They may be bodhisattvas. They have realized their Buddha nature and chosen to return, not because they have any karmic debt to pay, but out of pure love and service. And then you might wonder, well, what if I do escape samsara? And what if I find the light? And what if I go to the light? Who am I then? You become a Buddha. Now again, this is not a religious thing or even a belief system. What it means to be a Buddha, and there are in the universe said to be billions and billions of Buddhas, not just the one, Gautama Siddhartha, that we know of, but billions of Buddha. You become a Buddha. Then what? Well, there's a Buddha universe. And some Buddhas have, again, this is all in their literature, a very wonderful existence, and some Buddhas have their own problems and their own planes of existence, and it's just spheres within spheres within spheres, wheels within wheels. of existence that never ends. There's always more. There's always something beyond the horizon. It doesn't end. The lack of curiosity, we touched on this a week or two ago, among religious people about what do you do in heaven? How do we avoid being bored if we're going to spend eternity reaping the reward, resting in peace, whatever that means, chilling on the front porch in a rocking chair with a lemonade? What do you do? There's some point where there's got to be some work to be done, something that needs to be created and generated and produced, something wonderful, something positive. My sense of it is that we're always helping somebody in some way, on some level. You know, if you get nothing else out of today, you may want to consider this idea that there are guides around you and call upon them through your intuition. And you don't have to visualize them as any particular form or being or totem animal. Just wonder at the source of your creativity. Ask questions and wait for answers. Instead of always using logic to try to figure stuff out deductively. Well, if this is true and that's true and this is the case and this is observable and I tried this, so I can eliminate that, I can eliminate this, that leaves me with the... If you can put that aside and just stand open and receptive to the spontaneous bubbling up of awareness, of insight and understanding, these realizations occur to you. Some of them lofty and esoteric, some of them very practical and down to earth that you can apply in your daily life if you just ask for help. So again, recognition, expectation, know what to look for. Consider this now that you can, what was the Gandhi quote I put in the newsletter this week? Live as if you would die tomorrow.